Here we go. So you guys are really going to come?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were gonna.
That's a good deal. Thank you. Anyways, so we got to do something. Here we did. How many times did we try to have church at home or this or that? So here we go again, just like the nation Israel. They fell away from God. Not that we're totally backsliding, but they went to God. What did God do? He helped them. Then they sinned again, and they went back, and he helped them. When sinned again, helped them. And sometimes I think to myself, how's God look at us? So I want to share with you guys a subject today, and you guys can interject, you can share if you want, you can ask questions. Not that I have the answers. We can open this up. So, and I'm not going to talk long at all. But if I had to talk to somebody today, I'm talking to myself. So don't think I'm the hypocrite here. If I'm preaching to someone today, I'm preaching to me. You know, I have issues I need to work out, and I'm sharing what I would preach to myself. So when I'm preaching this, I don't want you to think, oh, look at better than thou. No, this is for me. So, and you guys know that. So anyways, if anybody has any questions or anybody online wants to write something or a question or talk about a certain subject, it would really encourage me if I had any comments and say, hey, can you talk about it this week or next week, or what's this subject, or any questions? It would encourage me and get me going to have discussions to talk about. I won't say who said it. I'll just say, hey, somebody said this, and I'll go through it, because I have better discussions when someone helps me get going. So, but I want the subject I would talk about for myself is a subject called to be holy. I shared this with you this week, to be holy. And we need to know what it's like to be holy. The Bible says, be holy, for God is holy. Now, a lot of people think that holiness means we got to have a robe and symbols, and we got to be a monk and go, whoa, and we got to do all this, better than, and all. No, we have to really pull it apart. And the word holiness in a real simplified form doesn't mean that. What it means is to be set apart. What it means is to be different. We see the world going certain ways, and if we don't hang out with Christian people, read our Bibles, and talk to God once in a while, the world is very powerful. It will sweep us off of our feet, and if we continue to do that, we won't believe in God no matter what goes on. And then all of a sudden, if we have any knowledge of God, things go crazy in the world, and we're running to God like Israel. And we're running, oh, God, help us, help us, help us. And some of us have an idea what life is supposed to be like. Hey, this is what life is like, or that's what life is like. Why? Well, that's what everybody does. It's not what everyone does. I was listening to David Wilkerson, and he said, I was always one of them kids that were just different. I just didn't fit in. And I guess maybe that was a good start, because that's what holiness is. Holiness is when you're set apart. Now, if you're holy for God, you're set apart for God. That means exactly, okay, what's the normal life? What is so many other people doing? First of all, when someone says, hey, everybody else does it, no, they don't. No, they don't. Not everybody else does things because, things that seem normal. You go to schools, you go out to the workplace, and if you don't, you go to churches, oh, I don't believe this, or I don't believe that. Over the 30 years I was going to churches, I learned one thing. You're not going to find a perfect church. Like Billy Graham says, if you think you're in the perfect church, don't join it, because once you join it, it won't be perfect. But there is no perfect church. But you've got to be by like-minded people. You've got to be by people who know about God. That's why the Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they get old, they won't depart from it, because they have those nuggets. Now, the thing about, I was sharing with you today, the thing about the dangers of growing up and knowing the things of God, these are the dangers. Because if we say, oh, everybody else is doing it, it's the normal, it's what you're supposed to do, and we're a holy people set apart, different than other people, and a child, let me give you an example. Let's say a child is raised, and I'm going to use the Bible to share my reasoning for this. Let's say a child is raised, or like children are raised, and they're raised with God. They're raised with prayer. They're raised with church. They're raised reading the Bible. They're raised understanding God. Okay? Now, God put them in a family in this world that they were raised like that. So they know these things. So many people will say, what about the people who never heard of Christ? That's right. There's people out there, believe it or not, there's children out there, there's kids out there, there's young adults out there who the only God they've ever heard of is the ones they heard in school or whatever, and what they don't know. Now, the Bible says few stripes for the ones, I'm paraphrasing, few stripes for the ones that never heard it or don't know better, many stripes for the ones who do. So you could say, if you were raised according to the will of God, according to the Bible, according to the scriptures, and you go meet people who have not been, and you think if God is the same and he's impartial and all those things, and you think, well, if these guys do it, I can do it. Well, that's not really God being just then, is it? Because God put you in a family where you learn things that they didn't learn. So if God were to be absolutely 100% fair, he is going to be more strict with you. He's going to be more strict. You are not going to be treated like those other people because God didn't put some of those other people in a family that shared God with them. So if God is totally equal and totally just, he will hold each and every one of us accountable. And in a couple examples of that, one example of that is in the Bible with Moses. Moses interceded for the people. He was a man that was very close to God, and God shared things with him. He could go places and do things with God that the nation Israel wasn't doing. He would go up to the mountain and talk with God. He would do things, and he was extremely close to God. But God gave Moses extremely rare things. He gave him things he didn't give the average person. But now one day Moses, they were ready to go into the land of Israel. The entire purpose that God put Moses in his place is one of the major things is to bring Israel and bring them across the Jordan into their land. And when it came right down to it, Moses lost his cool and he struck the rock. God said something to the fact of, I can't remember, call water out of the rock or touch, but he struck it out of anger. A sin to you and me that's 10,000 times less than adultery and what the Israelites, who he was interceding for all them years, were doing. This was such a tiny little thing in our minds compared to what the people he was interceding. God was going to destroy the nation, and Moses said, please don't, please don't, please don't. And he relented, and God said, fine, I won't. And I'm thinking, why would you take this man that did everything and be so strict with him for the littlest little thing? And say, no, you can't go into the promised land because you got angry for this period of time and struck the rock instead. And we as humans think, but all the people who were doing sins 1,000 times worse than that in our minds, he can stand there and watch them cross the Jordan and go in, and he can't go in because he got angry for a second? What's up with that? God gave Moses unbelievable things, more than the average person. Moses was much more liable and much more responsible, and God was much more strict with Moses. And he will be, if you were raised and you were born in a family like that, and you want to run with somebody who wasn't, prepare your hearts, because God is not going to treat you the same as he treats those people. Those people didn't have a chance, and they will have few stripes. And that's the, sometimes you're going to say, well, I wish I went to know him then. Well, there's a lot of benefits to knowing. We're supposed to be kingdom-minded. I was listening to a sermon last night and I got so pumped. We're supposed to be kingdom-minded. In other words, when we see the world falling apart and we see these people, we don't say, well, everybody does it. No, you're different. You are a child of God. We are a child of God. You are called out to be a child of God. That means you have to be different. That's what be holy means. God is saying, be set apart. I'm set apart. You be set apart too. So when you do things and you see the world going a certain way, it's not that you're not there. It's that you stand out. I'm a child of God. I can't do this. I'm set apart. Now, don't get that confused with I'm better than, I'm more holy than, because that's not what it is. It's to know in your heart that God has called you and he set you apart for himself. Now, that may seem like a sucky thing now because it's like I want to do what the world can do. But when in the eyes of eternity, in the spectrum of all things, that is an amazing benefit we have if we utilize it. In 10 million millenniums from now, There is a city of gold. There is a heaven, and it is a place, and it has mansions. Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you. In my kingdom, in my Father's house are many mansions. I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you guys can come with me. But he called you. He put you on this earth. How would you like it if he would have put you in a place that no one ever learned about God, and the only chance they had is maybe evolution or something like that? They did just, it's all that anybody ever told them. You want to run with those people and think, well, if they do it, if they do it, I can do it, and God's going to treat us all the same. Contrairement, for not going to happen. And it's something we need to remember. I need to remember. I am 52 years old, and I am a sinner. I fail. You people know me more than anybody, and you know that one day I want to get up and have the Bible, and the next day I fall. The next day I want to get up and have the Bible, the next day I fall. But where do you stop? What am I supposed to do? Wake up and say, okay, I can't pray to God? And the Bible says, when I fall, I shall arise. So I have to do that. I have to keep trying. And sometimes in fear I do it, because something crazy will happen in life and you'll run to God. And after 30 years, that's longer than you guys are alive. After 30 years, you start feeling like the hypocrite. But what did God do? I was thinking of that this morning. I said, God, how long can I've been saying I want to change my life for decades. When I say change it, I'm talking about that holiness. I mean, I want people to, I don't want to have to preach. I want them to see in my life, hey, that dude changed. So many people in my life in the last 30 years have been total, miserable, hateful, atheists, drunks, and all that stuff. And they changed their life, and I saw them literally stop doing it. And I'm thinking, I have been struggling with this battle for 3 decades, and I'm still losing the battle so many times. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I think of Nineveh, when God said, I'm going to destroy the place. You go tell him, Jonah, he said, Jonah, go tell him, I'm going to destroy the place in 40 days. He didn't want to go tell him. But 40 days, God was so merciful and fine. The Bible says his mercies are new every morning. But there is going to come a time when we leave our bodies, and God will say, for the first time in our entire existence, where we left our bodies is where we're staying. And it's so important. But I just want to say thanks. And anybody have questions, I would like to do this more often. If I had a few comments to the people online, hey, that was pretty good. Maybe can you talk about this one of these weeks? It would really get me ramped up to talk about something like that, because sometimes I'm a person who needs somebody to shove me along with a certain subject that I could really open up and we could talk about. So that was a Sunday. Thanks you guys for listening. Thank you anybody listening online. Have a good week. Pray for me. I'll pray for you guys. Have a good week.